It may not have been the out-and-out fight for the win that we would have wanted, but the Silverstone race weekend did deliver with exciting racing and a bonkers qualifying. Qualifying was incredible, with McLaren putting their cars into P2 and P3, which was insane. And no one really saw that coming, but the question was, could they carry that pace through into the race? And the answer was a resounding yes. Lando got past Max at the start. Now, Lando had a good start, but you'd argue that Max actually had a bad start. And the crowd erupted seeing Lando leading the race, and he led the race for quite a few laps and looked fairly comfortable. In fact, at one point, he broke the DRS of Verstappen. But Verstappen came back, but Lando didn't fight it. What's the point? He knew realistically that Red Bull had too much pace, and he said afterwards he just didn't want to ruin his tyres fighting for no reason, and that does make sense. Now, one team they knew they could fight, though, was Mercedes. Even towards the end of the race, when a late safety car was brought out for Kevin Magnussen's smoky Ferrari, Lando must have thought he'd been at risk because he was on the hard tyres with Lewis Hamilton behind on slightly used softs. But it wasn't to be for Hamilton. Hamilton was right behind Lando every lap until Maggots and Beckett's, and then the McLaren was so good in those high-speed corners that it just edged forward enough that Lewis was too far back by the time they reached the end of the hangar straight, even with DRS. Lewis went through his tyres trying to get past, but Lando drove brilliantly to stop that early surge, and then in the podium room after the race, he joked that the high-speed performance saved him. From Mercedes' point of view, it's going to be really rough to see a customer team like McLaren take such a leap forward in performance and leapfrogging them, at least at the last two tracks, Austria and Silverstone. McLaren were one of the worst teams at the start of the year, but they knew that wasn't their real car. This was their real car that they were bringing, and now they've brought it, they've jumped ahead of Mercedes. Now, I will say that with a caveat. Austria and Silverstone, they're very unique tracks. Will McLaren be able to carry that forward to tracks like Hungary that we have coming up next? Are they truly the second best team, or will it still flip-flop around between Aston Martin, Mercedes, and Ferrari? We'll have to wait and see. Going back to Mercedes, Hamilton had a rough start going on the dirty side of the track into Village, and he went wide, letting Fernando Alonso and one of the Alpines through. Not exactly a good start. Russell, on the other hand, did leapfrog one of the Ferraris, getting past Sainz early on, but he did start on the soft tyres. Then Hamilton was able to get back past Fernando Alonso and the Alpine to end up in his starting position of 7th. He then got a bit lucky with the safety car though, meaning he leapfrogged his teammate Russell and Piastri, who had just stopped. I really felt sorry for Oscar Piastri. He drove a fantastic race. He ended the race in 4th, but he deserved that podium because he drove fantastically right behind Lando the entire race. He just got really unlucky with the safety car. Ferrari weren't having a terrible race either in 4th and 5th, but they also got ruined by the safety car. Carlos Sainz in particular afterwards got eaten up by multiple cars on his hard tyres. Leclerc, who stopped before the safety car for the hard tyres, actually then stopped again during it to get rid of them and put on the mediums. Ferrari ended up at the back end of the top 10, which is not what they would have expected. I mentioned him a little bit earlier, but Fernando Alonso had a pretty lonely race, sort of 6th, 7th, 8th, running in that sort of area. I don't know if you remember after the Spanish Grand Prix, Fernando said, I think his quote was, "This will be the last time we won't be on the podium." Well, that's not really worked out, has it? Especially considering the last couple of races, the Aston Martin has really been nowhere on pace. Now, Hungary is the next race coming up, and Aston Martin think that will suit their car better. The blend of slower speed corners and medium speed corners that Hungary has to offer, high downforce. Will we see them start challenging the Ferraris and McLarens again? I'm not so sure, but I hope so for Fernando's sake. To end, it was a good race weekend, and I enjoyed the race. To see McLaren back on the podium at Silverstone after 10 years was incredible, especially considering the last time they were on the podium was with Hamilton. So for him to be there next to Norris, but obviously racing for another team, was kind of symbolic in a way. I'm really looking forward to seeing Hungary in the next couple of weeks. A very different track. Will the running order be the same? Have McLaren made that breakthrough so that they are actually the second best team at a number of different types of circuits? That'll be the true test. I hope you enjoyed this quick recap, and as always, I'll see you next time.